We'll be back in 30 seconds. Coffee and Cream on Hail Varsity Radio with Andrew Rogers and Damon Benning.
Spencer rocks himself into a triple and finally hits.
That's a great side for Rutgers. Oh, what a move by Primo Spears. My goodness. That's a three-point play opportunity.
The call with some pressure, but playing it cleanly.
Spears straight down the lane for an easy two. And this crowd is loving it. Georgetown gets their first Big East win since March of 2021. The 29-game losing streak, the longest in Big East history, has come to an end.
It really is. I from time to time, I'll have a request. Hey, would you do that? 100%. I of course love doing it. I'm not going to get in the way. If I'm counterproductive, I certainly won't do it. But my job is to block and tackle for the coaches and to help clear a path for them, hopefully to be successful.
That's Nebraska's athletic director, Trev Alberts. You heard the final call from Georgetown's victory, too. Did they snap a 29-game losing streak, DB? Any idea?
I don't know, but if he would have said Hoyas win one more time, I was going to lose my mind. I asked you off air, I was like, man, how would you like to beat DePaul? And you calmly said, had to be somebody.
Had to be somebody.
Wow.
And you followed with, thank God it wasn't Creighton.
Yeah. Could you imagine?
I told you the town would burn down.
My man lost his mind. Yes. And I get it, right? Like, I get it. Lord knows I get it, right? You don't get any wins as a head coach, and you're like, what is going on? I'd probably lose my mind too. But Hoyas win. Hoyas win. Hoyas win. And yes, I'm childish, but I did stop counting. Did you count?
Because I said, because you go, do you know how many times he said Hoyas win? I'm like, yeah, about 3,000. You said 20. I'm like, did you count? Like, because you were on.
Well,
point
here's the thing, and we talked about this yesterday. During the day after, like I had to come back and play catch up, right? Like Heinz 57 because I'm at a basketball game watching a total meltdown at the high school level, and I'm like, so you don't want to miss out, right? So you're going to the library and you're watching sporting events in the middle of the night, and I'm just like, this isn't fun, and I'm gonna have to sit through this. But I just wanted to know. See, I'm weird like that. Like I wanted to know. Was Pat cool? Was he like, thank the Lord? I was listening through the broadcast, the 27 times where they alluded to the fact that he is pleasantly surprised that his team still comes to compete every day. Like I remember.
How are you pleasantly surprised that your team?
And then he kind of worded it differently. He goes, I don't know about if surprised is the word, but they're coming to work wanting to get better. And I was like, can I skim? Like sometimes you just want to hit fast forward.
Yeah.
But
just show me the good stuff.
But it's like I'm paranoid, right? Because you want to be good at your job, and you don't want people to call and say, did you see or did you hear, and you didn't. And you want to be and then my silly butt, I follow Jacob Padilla, and one of my guys I'm gonna that I know really well in Chicago had he always does these weird picks, right? So last night, this was his big thing. What does that say right there?
Men's tennis.
Yep.
25 Shelton plus 4.5.
Yeah. So coincidentally, Jacob Padilla was enamored with the Aussie Open. Who was he tweeting about? Shelton. I was like, that's weird. Let me flip through and watch some Australian Open.
Did Shelton talk about his favorite actress, Drew Barrymore? Or
No, he didn't shoot his shot. Who was that yesterday?
it's Sipsipis or something
Yeah,
like that.
yeah.
I don't know how to pronounce his last name.
As I can't remember who I used to talk to. They called him Sipsap.
Yes.
No, it might have been Severe. It was somebody. And he shot his shot. Who was the actress?
Margot Robbie.
Yeah.
Or Robbie.
Robbie.
Margot
Robbie. So anyway.
You said that about the amount of times Hoyas win.
Hoyas win, man. So I just was like, what's Jacob Padilla's affinity with Shelton? Jacob's pretty straight laced. I guarantee he's not playing plus 4.5 games.
And he also has, every time he tweets something, he has a reason for it.
Oh, yeah. So like,
it's not like he's just like, oh, Shelton's my guy.
So then I was like hooked. So I have a little, in Canada, they used to call them caquites. I was hoping I didn't have any eye boogers from a little lack of sleep. I was rubbing my eyes this morning. I'm like, man, did I really trick off that whole night of sleep? Mad at my dog. But anyway, Shelton covered the 4 games, 4.5. Who caps tennis? Who caps tennis? Okay.
What's so funny about that too is I have a buddy that follows tennis.
I I hope you like
his
tennis.
Favorite sport, which it isn't.
I like tennis.
I enjoy watching tennis, but I can only watch so much of it.
Do you know who likes tennis? Wrestling Cody. They called the other day. My man is like all in on tennis. So we go back and forth because I like tennis. I typically like women's tennis more than men's tennis. Especially as of late, but
I like seeing the new faces.
I watched them both. The problem is I needed a pronunciation key.
I feel like you need that with every sport.
Yeah,
though,
so that's difficult. But 7'6", 6'3", 7'5", 6'4". Do the math. That's plus 4. I wanted to say to my guy, he's Dino the Greek, and he's kind of nuts, constantly traveling like he goes to a lot of islands. I'm an island boy. Anyway,
spike up your hair a little bit.
That's interesting. By the way, you like seeing the new faces. I think
I don't. He does.
In those 3 sports, like golf,
he doesn't have a name.
I like seeing Coco Gauff play.
Yeah,
because she is the new Serena Williams.
Blasphemer. Watch your mouth.
Whoa,
but she's not really a new face though.
Baby steps.
Who?
But
Serena or Coco?
Coco.
She's more of a new face than
I'm just
Djokovic. Do you know how old Coco Gauff is?
Like 20.
I'd say less. How old's Coco Gauff, TB?
22, I think.
Is she really? Dang it.
Now, don't quote your boy like I'm not the world's authority.
I was saying that most people, like when in those 3 sports, golf, tennis, and NASCAR, they don't typically gravitate towards like the newer people. They gravitate towards the people that have been around.
Funny you say that.
She's only 18.
18. I thought so. Funny you say that, Shaner, because with the Corn Ferry Tour and everything that happens here in town, covering that, not to say that some of those guys are new golfers because they get their tour card stripped and then they try to get it back and go back to the tour. But I consider those still newer guys when they get back there.
When they get back, okay.
Right. So whether it's they've had the card before, they lose it, they go back. Well, they're not Tiger Woods who has it every year. Like I have an affinity for Tiger Woods. Don't get me wrong.
Oh, I do too.
But I also thoroughly enjoy watching Taylor Montgomery play golf, who's been playing.
So you like new blood into the sports.
Yeah, I like the underdog. We'll just say that. Not to say Coco Gauff's an underdog by any means, but
what about an old guy who's missed some time that comes back and
I like that too.
A young guy. So were you cheering for Letang last night?
Chris?
Yes.
I like Letang.
Chris with a
Why did you kind of stop there? Yeah.
Letang is one of those guys for me, not to go all hockey, since we're just random sports open this morning, women's
What else
tennis.
is new?
Right. Hoyas win. Letang is one of those guys for me that's hard to rally around. I should like him. I want to like him. He just
Still one of the best defensemen in all of hockey.
Not true defenseman, probably one of the better two-way guys because he's more offensive-minded. But the devil's in the details. But it was great to see him come back. He had the stroke, and then his father passed away, and he was pretty complete last night.
I like the story.
He was pretty.
Did you see the story that I sent to you yesterday? Did you end up watching it?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
About
The kid in Crofton.
Yeah.
And I told you were trying to make me emotional during the show. That's why I turned the video off.
Was it during Morning Dump? Is that when we were talking about that?
Yeah. I like those kind of stories.
The fluff.
No, feel good. It's a different.
Also fluff.
Wow.
Similar things.
So, do you know what the kids say now? I caught this last night watching Prep and West Side.
Bet.
Do you know what the kids say now?
Cap.
No. Cap is almost played out.
I don't know what the kids say.
Fifis. Do you know what fifis are?
Fifis?
Yes.
Well, it makes it sound like something that comes out something's back end.
Get out of your fifis. That is your
feels.
Your feels.
Get out of your fifis?
Yeah. All in his fifis.
Sounds like something that would get you punched on the playground.
Right.
Get out of your fifis, DB.
So, I mean.
Get out of your fifis.
Got to stay current, man. You're yelling at folks
on the new stuffed animal at Target? Or
Right. By the way, I bypassed having to get another LOL doll yesterday for Zoe, who was supposed to get a surprise after school. I said, that's between you and your mom.
And then what did your wife say? That's between you and your dad.
No, I think she picked up something, but it was a tight schedule, man. It's tight. I had time to be swinging by the store.
And once you get into the store, it's like, well, I don't know if I want this one or can I get two?
Zoe's a lot like her brother.
I feel like she could walk into a store and you'd buy 10 things for her.
Extremely particular. She's not just a look and grab kid, which is fine, right? I mean, Caleb still has probably his first $10 he's ever received, so
just doesn't spend it.
God,
he's a saver.
He's just weird, man. He drives me crazy sometimes. I mean, I like measured and I like controlled, but sometimes I want to check for his pulse. I
don't know a lot of parents that say, man, he's just weird.
Well, this recruiting thing is driving me up the wall.
Speaking of, PJ Fleck in town today.
Yeah. PJ Fleck will be in town. Vandy, Clark Lee. I hope he brings Coach Jackson with him. He's had some school. K-State, KU, Oklahoma was in yesterday. It just, and I get it. I know exactly what I signed up for, but it's different because I have to ask folks to get off my lawn. I feel like Walt. I feel like this is a Gran Torino moment where I'm like the old guy now that is super picky, but I try not to interject.
Mm-hmm.
I just watch and I wait and I see if people are who they say they are. That's it.
You're a people watcher.
Very much so.
So am I.
I would have liked to have been. I would have liked to have been at Central Bellevue West last night to watch
Matt Rhule.
Yeah, because he watches for different things than we think he watches for. So sometimes I just want to.
Do you think he goes to those games and analyzes footwork and things like that?
I think sometimes. I think he's got a different. He strikes me as the type of guy that probably has a notebook. Hey, I've done my homework. This he's supposed to be this. So he'll put that to the side because that's the obvious. That's the stuff everybody knows. And then he'll probably go look for something different.
Right.
Hey, man, did he shake the seventh guy's hand in line? How was he during warm-ups? Was he fraternizing with the crowd? How much did he look to his parents or guardians?
Is he a gamer?
Stuff like that.
Is he clutch under pressure?
I don't know. I mean, it's a very, very inexact science.
Why did you sound like Elmer Fudd there?
Because
Be very quiet.
because on my Fire Stick I have this thing called TV shows as a segment, and you can watch a lot of old TV shows. And there are 457 cartoons available, and Bugs Bunny is one of them. Do you know what else is? Fat Albert. Did I watch that? Maybe.
Hey, hey, hey.
Hey. What you got to say? Hey, Mudfoot.
Hey, last night Trev Alberts was on.
Yeah, he's in
He's
his
on the
wheelhouse.
radio.
He's in his wheelhouse there, isn't he?
He and Greg Sharp have a good back and forth.
Yeah, Sharpie's great. He's great, man.
Well, you work with him.
I didn't.
Anyone.
I didn't know I was gonna like him as much. He's a lot different than I think you probably think. He's like way funny. Yeah, he's got a little snark to him.
Goofiness.
No, see, that's different. He's not goofy. He's very quick. I guess the word
wit.
Wit. I was just getting ready to say. I guess the word would be wit. He's very witty, and I like that because you can throw him a curveball. What would be a curveball for a lot of other people, and he's going to hit that thing.
Well, and they talked a lot about the spring game and
we've got a date.
Memorial Stadium. The date is set for April 22nd at 1 p.m. What's really cool is the collab between FNBO and UNL. They're giving away 3,000 tickets to active military and veterans, which is, I mean, any time that you support our troops, I couldn't be more in favor. Under the age of 18, youth under the age of 18 get $1 tickets. Nebraska students get free tickets. Season ticket holders will then purchase tickets on January 31st, and then the general public on February 1st. But here's where my mind went with everything, because it's so new. Everything is so new with this season. Memorial Stadium can hold roughly, 90,000? A little more than 90,000 on some days, depending. Do you know the exact capacity number for the stadium?
It's like 91, maybe.
Okay, 91,000. On average, how many people really attend a spring game? Last year, it was 53,000 people. That was the number that was at least shared. But with all the incentives, with everything going on, all the new, because people like the new, they're itching to see what is stacking up in this program. Can they hit that 90,000?
Yeah.
I think they could do it in like 5 minutes.
There's no question.
People will be chomping at the bits to get tickets.
Yeah, and I think, Nebraska fans are super competitive, so I think they would enjoy breaking a record, a spring game attendance record. And so there's a couple things at play, right? Coach Rhule and his staff have been everywhere across the state. So they're making themselves a part of these communities, right? Those are the same communities that will get in the vehicles and be there on Saturday mornings. There's a reason they say it's the third largest city or second largest city in Nebraska. Well, I guess it would be second because Lincoln's already second. And so there's that. And then there's the fact that his Q rating is so high out of the gates. Like, I think people want to see what's going on. That and the fact with so many new faces, you kind of want to feel for what's going on. So if nothing else, get yourself a program. Right now, it's like it may change after spring pretty quick, but people want to get their hands on a program. So I don't know. It wouldn't shock me.
Get that thing signed. Excuse me. Get that thing signed by Matt Rhule, like he did on Bussin With the Boys yesterday when he signed his Bussin Bowl.
Yeah, he had
contract.
He had a line yesterday or on Bussin With the Boys, and I knew because Compton said something about it after they taped it. So I had a little bit.
Yes, it wasn't live for those people wondering. It just got released at that time.
He had a line that was so good. I had to you're like, is this real? He said, and I quote, "I was not delivered unto this world in defeat, nor does failure course in my veins. I'm not a sheep waiting to be prodded by my shepherd. I am a lion, and I refuse to talk and walk to sleep with the sheep. I will hear not those who weep and complain. Scripture, in case you're following along.
I have my Bible out.
For their disease is contagious. Let them join the sheep. The slaughterhouse of failure is not my destiny. I will persist until I succeed. The slaughterhouse is not my destiny. You've heard me say this before. It's not original because it is. You get it from Scripture. Lions don't seek the opinions of sheep, and we have a kind of a principal and a superintendent that are kind of 80-20 guys that don't get distracted by the 20%. You try to get rid of that 20%. And so I'm always all in about the hunt and the Lions. Almost every Friday game hunt or game GIF that I use for our team is something about either lions or wolves because they hunt in packs. Occasionally when it's a big game, I'll use orcas because they're the perfect killing machine. I salivate over that a little bit. But I mean, how good is that though? Right? It's, and I go back and I think I leave almost nothing to chance. I leave very little to chance. And I'm like, again, I don't know if it equates to wins and losses, but one thing I can tell you is conviction is big when it comes to being able to endure. You have to have some conviction and some resolve. And resolve only comes from conviction because conviction that's your ability to stay the course. Do I believe in what I'm saying and isn't the essence of who I am? That's what this team needs. That's what this program needs. You cannot waver in tough times. You have to have something to rest on and in when that storm picks up. That is what Nebraska's been missing because too often it's just been like, well, what way's the wind blowing today? We're going to run it today. We're going to throw it today. What are we playing today, right? What do we like against 2x2 sets today? Like, you know what I mean? It's always like what are they going to be? Because I think that's really the only way you weather storms is you got to be able to anchor down to something, right?
No doubt.
And he just, I don't know. Maybe I'm naive. And again, I don't think it's Kool-Aid because I don't even like Kool-Aid. And I'm typically pretty.
He's not telling you what you want to hear. He's telling you what he really feels, desires,
and he likes challenges. I mean, you don't go to Waco and say, you know what? Hey, this could be all right. Without feeling like it could be all right. You don't pick Temple.
You know what I thought last night when I was listening to that entire thing? It was like an hour, maybe an hour and a half. I felt like I was put into your shoes every day because what he was saying felt like I was texting back and forth with him.
Oh, yeah.
So that's what I mean when I say like I put myself into your shoes because when you have conversations with them and you relay some things to me, which is why it made me think like that. But I felt like I'm really having a conversation with Matt Rhule right now. And I hope other people did too, because that's just who Matt Rhule is. That's how he delivers his message. And he's completely authentic and genuine with everything he says and does.
It's just crazy. I mean, if he's always going to be that comfortable in his own skin, I think he gives that team a chance. Because I think in real leadership, not only do you want model behavior, but you want whomever you're receiving instruction from, you're like, all right, that's what they're about. That's who they are. And I've used this analogy before, and it's not just because they're in town, but that's one of the reasons Minnesota wins. We don't like what's being said, and we kind of make light of it, but it doesn't matter what we think. It's if that team believes it, it's 90% of it.
A good follow-up to this is our poll question. We'll get to that next.
Rogers and Benning will be back in 5 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 4 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 3 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 2 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 1 minute. Rogers and Benning will be back in 30 seconds. Coffee and Cream with Rogers and Benning on Hale Varsity Radio.
The progress is going very well. Again, I always want to thank the folks working on it, the architects and our construction team. Want to thank, our staff. This is part of this recruiting. I mean, it's been a really, in a sense, stressful time for some of the members of our staff, in a sense that we've got this critical opportunity to get some talent in here to help our football program, not just our football program, but the rest. And so you're starting to see some of the Go Big project take shape. We're taking all the recruits through there, and one of the big things that Matt is, it's all about recovery, and it's about health of our student athletes. And this is the brick and mortar behind that. And it's going to be the premier development facility in the country. And it's really helped us in recruiting.
Welcome back, Coffee and Cream in the Morning on Hail Varsity Radio, powered by Currency, 590 ESPN Omaha, 1480 ESPN Lincoln, live on Twitter, live on YouTube, and live from Hail Varsity Club. Live from the H&H Chevrolet stage, we're powered by Currency. I feel like I just read an entire novel of things I wanted to tell you there, but I wanted to tell you where to go to find us and tell you where we do the thing every day, do the show. So happy to have you with us. We'll talk to Brian Christopherson at 8 o'clock today. He's with Husker247.com. We'll talk to Kevin Sjuts, 10-11 News at 8:30. We'll play 2 for you to close the show. I'll also give you my thoughts in the next segment. Something that's grinding my gears, DB, about the MLB Hall of Fame. And you know, people can probably maybe make the correlation just based on looking at what I'm wearing today, if you are watching on YouTube. But before we get there, I want to get to our poll question. Our poll question of the day: favorite quote after hearing Matt Rhule talking on Bussin' with the Boys. And I took 4 that I took away from it, and then I wanted to see how people reacted to it. A was, I don't need to move anymore. B, there's more reason for that, DB. No need to laugh. B, this is taking a program to where they have once been. C, have a good time, get a degree, win a championship, go to the NFL. Or D, the slow burn was last year. So go out, vote on the poll question. That's Hail Varsity Radio on Twitter, where you can find that. And let us know what your thoughts are. What do you think?
I don't know.
When I say I don't need to move anymore, that's him saying, hey, I was all about progressing toward the most competitive football I could find. And then he realized it's not all sunshine, lollipops, and rainbows in that side of the land. So he's securing himself to the area. So knowing that as a fan base, that's why I put that in there.
Maybe D. I got to think about that, though. I mean, it's going to provoke some thought. I feel like I better give that a retweet just so I can see what everybody else is thinking.
In regards
to the whole sheep thing.
Well, I could have wrote that all down, but Twitter only gives me like 200 characters or whatever it is. In regards to Trev Alberts, though, yesterday, which you heard his clip once again coming back from break, something that he said during his interview with Greg Sharp. Do you have any nicknames for him? Sharpie, Sharpay?
Nah, just Sharpie.
Sharpie?
Yeah. I think I called him G Sharp like during the broadcast once, which I felt like I was taking a leap.
Because you're a nickname guy, so I was just curious.
Yeah, but you know, there's a certain level of professionalism, so I got to know that he's cool.
There's professionalism with that broadcast, but not this one.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, if we tank this, it's just us.
That's true.
Right?
Very true.
If I'm unprofessional on the other one, it's like, yeah, man, might be looking for somebody else.
My biggest takeaway though from that interview was when Trev said it's good to understand history, but still strive for innovation. So understanding history, but striving for innovation. And what that made me sit back and think about was, and I'm sure a lot of people thought about this, was Tom Osborne, right?
Tennessee whiskey.
Didn't just wake up and win national championships. He was an innovator too. He took what Bob Devaney was able to do, and then he remembered history. He kept that in the back of his mind, but he still did things his way. He was an innovator too. He didn't get comfortable, didn't get stagnant. His team strived to be the best, and other teams that played Nebraska strived to be Nebraska. But the other name that was brought up there too, and I'm happy that connection was made, was Rhule not only meets with Tom Osborne, he meets with Frank Solich too.
Oh, you're in my wheelhouse.
And let's not forget that Frank Solich, after Devaney, since Devaney, is the second most winning coach at Nebraska. That gets overlooked sometimes when you talk about TO. But Frank Solich also knew how to understand history and strive for innovation.
It's interesting just because, you know, I get Coach Solich is my guy. And he's taught me a ton. Kind of the I don't know if I would necessarily. It's probably more my dad is the backbone of who I am. But during those critical years when a lot was going through my mind, right, as I'm reading Joel Arenzi talk about Trey Alexander and wanting to go home and quitting, and all the guys that came before me that were playing with me that wanted to leave as well at one point or another. Some of the conversations I had with Coach Solich, I felt like he's always the yeah but guy. And people talk about him in terms of his reverence and his history in the program, and it's oh man, he did this and this, but or yeah, it totally was time to go, but or it wasn't time to go, but there's like always some story, and sometimes it's frustrating to me because it's personal, and I just want him to be who he is to me. It's not really. It's not rational to think like that, right? Because everybody has different vantage points. So, and I know it doesn't sound right to say it out loud, but it's almost like I just want to protect him. And just because I think I know what he's about, I think I know the impact. I know the impact that he's had on me. And that's the first time I've ever heard. And I was going to text Greg about it, but that's the first time I've ever heard anybody say, in 888-638-4876, has there ever been a coach, whether it was Callahan or I could ask Bo, Riley, Scott, maybe Scott, I would assume maybe Scott would reach out to Frank. Maybe he did, and I don't know. I asked him, but I've never heard anybody say, hey, you know what, Coach Solich is the guy you ought to talk to. Like, that's at least for me, and I've been following this a long time. So of course I'm listening to that again. I'm like, so then of course I got to dig a little deeper. Well, is this because what? But since Trev has been at the helm, he has really tried to bring Coach Solich back. And I think one of the things that I really, really love about Trev, you're not going to get this anywhere else because I'm not afraid to say this. Trev is one of those guys that understands things. I think he wants to make right and do right. And I think he wants to do right by people. So I know what he went through when he stopped the wrestling program at Omaha and the football program, and how he feels about how that situation was handled. Could he go back and get it? What would he do different? Like, those things gnaw at good leaders because they always want to be better. And I always wonder when I hear how much reverence he has for Coach Solich, it's not only because he was his coach, but I wonder if it has anything to do with what some people hold against him with what he said on ESPN with Mark May when he said Nebraska absolutely needs a change of leadership at the head coaching position. And at that time, the coach was Coach Solich. And just knowing Trev's ability to go back and retro and reflect and in retrospect think, I almost wonder if, because we all have had those moments in our life where you're like, man, I'd like to go get that one back, but that was my job. Oh man, was I part of this? Or I did this for this person. It wasn't really true to who I was. I always wonder if he like thinks about that, because I think he's made such a concerted effort, and it could just be nothing more than great man, meant a ton to the program. But I always wonder if he feels like there's a part, just a itty bitty part of him that maybe owes him one for some of the,
Sure.
Maybe it was like guilt, but I don't think he should hold, like, I hope he's free of that. Like, I hope he's not carrying that burden, just because real time during that job on that platform on the 4-letter network, there are a lot of people that thought the way he did. You know what I mean? So I just know what it's like to not be able to, like, forgive yourself over your own transgressions, right? But I think he's okay. And for Coach Solich, he's very complicated. So it's not as easy as just, hey, come on back to Nebraska. We love you, open arms, because, Coach Solich is a quiet man. He's a prideful man, and he just kind of likes to mind his own business. He loves his family. He's trying to take care of his health. There's a lot that goes on there. But I thought it got your guy just to hear him say, you know what, that's a guy he ought to talk to, because that's who I would call in a heartbeat. if I was on the struggle bus or wanted some perspective.
We'll talk more about this in the 8 o'clock hour, but coming up next, call in 888-638-4876. We're talking MLB Hall of Fame.
Rogers and Benning will be back in 4 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 3 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 2 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 1 minute. Rogers and Benning will be back in 30 seconds. Coffee and Cream with Rogers and Benning on Hail Varsity Radio.
Hey, welcome back to the show, 888-638-4876. If you'd like to get involved, it's Coffee and Cream in the Morning on Hail Varsity Radio, powered by Currency. Damon Benning, Andrew Rogers. And Damon, let me tell you what's on my mind. So last night, I wasn't even just night yet, we'll say like mid-afternoon, toward into the evening, Scott Rowland was elected into baseball's Hall of Fame. And he just sneaked through the threshold. He had 76.3% of the ballots. You need 75%. So he got eligibility in his 6th year on the ballot. which is great. I was happy for him. Started as a Philly, played most of his prime as a Cardinal, and then back end of his career played for Cincinnati. And he goes down in history as one of the best third basemen to ever play the game. Not only just defensively, because that's where people tend to attribute most of his success to, but he also came up clutch in a lot of different moments offensively. He was 5th in WAR among third basemen. He had 8 Gold Gloves. That's 4th among corner infielders. And I shouldn't say corner infielders, the third base side of the bag. He was NL Rookie of the Year. He was a World Series champion in 2006 and a 7-time All-Star, which, of course, All-Star voting can be totally based off of fan votes. So I don't want to attribute too much into that. But Scott Rowland made the Hall of Fame. And then instead of seeing congratulatory messages, people went straight to, oh, I don't think if we're just throwing, we're just handing out candy now. Like Baseball Hall of Fame is like, you want a Jolly Rancher?
Whose voice is that, Drew? Now, whose voice is that?
The general public. So I get a text from Mike Sauter after, like 2 minutes after.
Here we go.
Scott Rowland gets into the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
And he goes, well, if Scott Rowland can get in, Mark Grace can get in. And I'm like, oh my, can we stop? Hang tight. Hang tight. This is not a Andrew hates the Chicago Cubs and he's attacking Mark Grace, because I think Anthony Rizzo's a phenomenal player. I thought Chris Bryant was a phenomenal player.
You're still all in on Ryan Sandberg?
Still all in. So it's not Andrew will never say a Cub gets in. Scott Rowland was a much better player than Mark Grace. Much better in all categories except for hitting. Mark Grace was the better hitter. No doubt. No doubt in my mind, Mark Grace was the better hitter. But I'm seeing things like Scott Rowland, a Hall of Famer. Sorry, don't see it. It truly has become the Hall of Very Good. I'm seeing things of Scott Rowland has 1 top 10 finish in MVP voting. He finished 4th. Josh Donaldson at least won an MVP. Josh Donaldson, he's still playing. And then I'm seeing things about Mr. Mark Grace of saying, well, if you're going to put Scott Rowland in the Hall, you might as well put Mark Grace. He had 407 more hits in his career, 1 less season, struck out 768 less times. Yeah, he was a great hitter, but he was not every bit of the defender that this guy says. Scott Rowland, he changed the game defensively. He made outstanding plays more times than not. He has a similar amount of errors to a guy like Nolan Arenado. Like season-wise, if you look at Nolan Arenado's errors, that's Scott Rowland. Are you going to tell me Nolan Arenado doesn't deserve to be in the Hall of Fame? Defensively, Scott Rowland did plenty to get into the Hall of Fame. And offensively, he did enough to get that vote. Mark Grace fell off the ballot. Mark Grace didn't even get 5%. He couldn't even stay on. Scott Rowland has been trending upward. He had the trajectory to get to 75%. And you're going to tell me Mark Grace, who couldn't even get, 12 votes to stay on the ballot, deserves his spot too next to Scott Rowland? We're going to compare apples to oranges?
Listen, I love it. I really, really, really do. Are you one of those people like Jeff Kent, or are you one of those people that's because you love baseball, right? And you're not afraid. We went into war in Jaws.
Oh, speaking of, let's talk about war with Scott Rowland and Mark Grace. Ever wonder what the difference of 20 looks like? Sorry, continue.
Are you worried? And I don't know if baseball will ever get away from this, although the analytics have changed. Are you worried about baseball being too stat-driven versus what did my eyes tell me?
Mm-hmm.
Because there are certain benchmarks and metrics that I think you have to meet for, positional players that really, and I had this conversation, this was years ago, it was basically centered around Don Mattingly. right? You know, the 9 good years, and didn't have the power numbers for corner infielders and things like that, and not having done it long enough. And coincidentally, you know, Todd Helton is one of those guys that's being mentioned the very same kinds of things about offensive production versus having comps, because the Baseball Hall of Fame it's all about comps, it seems like, right? And we get into like War and Jaws, where, you know, and Kent went all, and I'm now, full disclosure, I'm not a Jeff Kent guy, right? Jeff Kent was one of those guys that was really, really hard for me to cheer for when he became a Dodger, because he was a Giant for so long. But I think he's a 4-time Silver Slugger award winner. He's a 5-time All-Star. I think he's got a 123 plus OPS. I mean, I know I'm close, right? So, but he was going back and forth, and it's only because my sister's in California and she's a San Francisco Giants fan, texting back and forth with the San Francisco Chronicle about, he worries about what's going on with voting because it's too stat driven. What else is there in baseball where you can give these kinds of linear arguments, like the litany that you just went through to defend Scott Rowland? And I know it was Grace that got you started, because I think it's also, I'm with you. I don't know if that was Google, that was on the Google search, but I couldn't realize, I was wondering why that was the comp.
Yeah, I couldn't believe it.
I think it's more valid for me to talk about Beltran and Reggie Jackson.
My buddy,
which I've gone ham about.
My buddy's a Phillies fan, right? And he's my age, but he's not like dive deep into baseball. He texted me after Scott Rowland got in and saw some certain comps, and he goes, "Hey, who's Mark Grace?" He said, "Who's Mark Grace?"
The greatest slump buster ever.
You don't say any. If you heard the name Scott Rowland, you wouldn't say, "Who's Scott Rowland?" Who's Mark Grace?
No, I don't think you'd say who's Mark Grace either, but I kind of get it. I kind of.
Let me tell you. Here's some stats for you, DB. Third baseman with 1,200 plus runs and 1,200 RBIs. This is modern era since 1900, minimum of 60% of games at third base. The names on this list are Adrian Beltre, who will be on the ballot next year, George Brett, Chipper Jones, Eddie Matthews, Brooks Robinson, Scott Rowland, Mike Schmidt. I forgot that George Brett, Chipper Jones, Eddie Matthews, Brooks Robinson, and Mike Schmidt aren't in the Hall of Fame. So that's why Scott Rowland shouldn't be in the Hall of Fame either.
See, get your guy.
Oh, wait, that's right. All 5 of them are in the Hall of Fame, too. What are we talking about?
Who's Mark Grace?
Thank you. Thank you, Shannon.
He struck me as a guy that...
Gracie?
Yeah, Grace struck me as a guy when he came in, like the Chicago Cubs were trying to put everything on his shoulders, you know, after Ryan and all that kind of stuff, and after that era, towards the next era, and it didn't really pan out the way they wanted it to.
Yeah.
So who's Mark Grace?
Who's Mark Grace?
I'm just looking on it on the outside. Chicago Cub fans, don't hate on me, please.
I'm with you. I could not believe the comp is what we're talking about is Mark Grace to Scott Rowland.
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to use Grace, then I think you should use Mattingly. But I mean, that's just me, because Grace basically had, what was he, 80?
Wouldn't you want to comp the same position? Like, wouldn't you want to do that?
Well, I think sometimes corner infielders get lumped together.
But third base and first base are completely different spots.
I
Your first baseman rests normally a traditional power hitter.
I understand.
That can also flash the leather. At third base, you are primarily defense.
Now you have to be able to pick it, but good teams, good teams don't have third basemen that can't hit anymore. Because I mean, just look at some of these teams' lineups in like where the prowess is in baseball. It's like positionally, like the way that analytics has gone is certain positions have to produce certain offensive numbers statistically to give your team a legitimate chance to win. There are only so many Arizona Diamondbacks or Tampa Bay Rays, that can defy some of those offensive statistics per position and still win meaningful baseball games. Do you know what I mean? So I think third base has become one of those positions. Heck, it's a lot like shortstop. Like, it's no longer an excuse to not be good offensively as a middle infielder.
Any position.
So-
Think about it. Any position you have to produce
Well,
offensively.
but I also think it's different though, Drew Down, because now with swinging and missing being so acceptable,
That
I think
is true.
I think you just
That is
have to
true.
be able to hit balls hard,
Mhm.
right? It's like
It's either hit it 400 feet or strike out.
yeah, which I'll never subscribe to.
You know
Right,
who didn't subscribe
I
to that
still
either?
believe in
You know who-
productive. I
you
still
know
believe
who
in productive
didn't
outs.
Subscribe to that either, even though he struck out a ton. Scott Rowland. Just so you know. Just so you know.
Who's Scott Rowland?
I can't wait till pitchers and catchers report. I don't know if our listening audience will be all in on baseball, but I know these two guys will be.
Who's Scott Rowland?
I didn't even get to half of the things I wanted to talk about. I don't even know who Shane Schillerberg is.
Funny.
Nice shirt though, by the
Hey,
way.
thank you. It's fading. I got it when Scott Rowling first made his way into the league, apparently.
Thank you, Mike Sauter, for that segment.
Hey, Brian Christopherson, we're talking to you next.
Rogers and Benning will be back in 4 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 3 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 2 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 1 minute. Rogers and Benning will be back in 30 seconds. Coffee and Cream on Hail Varsity Radio with Andrew Rogers and Damon Benning.
Top of the hour here on Coffee and Cream in the Morning on Hail Varsity Radio, powered by Currency. If you didn't know, the Hoyas won. We are live from Hail Varsity Club, the H&H Chevrolet stage, alongside Damon Benning, Andrew Rogers, and we are happy to have Brian Christopherson on the phone with us, as we do every Wednesday. Brian, good morning.
Good morning, guys. How you doing?
Hi, BC. How are you? Career War 43-4, by the way.
Not too bad.
Career War for what?
Yeah, I'm not too bad. How are you?
We're good. We are. Andrew was a little fired up over, the disrespect that Scott Rowland was getting as a Hall of Famer.
I didn't raise my voice once.
Was not happy that he got the Mark Grace comparison. I said a better Grace comparison to the Hall would be Don Mattingly, and Don Mattingly isn't in either. More home runs, only 220 less hits, 1,000 less at-bats, similar WAR, better slugging percentage. Mattingly's not in. He played 3 less seasons. I don't know. We get rapidly. Is there a guy like that for you with the Twins? Is it Mauer for you, or are you like Hall of Fame and you're dying on that hill? Is there a guy like that for your Twins?
No, I don't get caught up on that topic, but I do appreciate people who are ready to box over it. I like those people. So I say keep chatting about it all you want.
Did you have to defend Puckett?
I'm like, no, I see. I never have really gotten into like that defense. I'm like, well, whatever happens. I guess it's not me that it's up for, so I'm not going to worry too much about it. But Kirby had a few things that happened after his career that kind of was unfortunate. But Kirby was my man. There's no question about it. Kirby and Joe Mauer were like the two guys that like I grew up on, and Kent Hurrdat, who pulls guys off the base in the World Series, but it looked legal to me. That's all I know.
BC, are you continuing to be amazed at? Do you look at your calendar or your clock or your watch and you think, I know that there's still only 24 hours in a day. How is this staff covering so much ground in a day? Like, are you kind of rechecking your calibrations at all?
A little bit. It feels like there's cloned Matt Rhules and Ed Foley's at least. I mean, those guys seem to be everywhere, or else they make better time than I do, the way they travel, that's for sure. Yeah, you'd have to. I mean, I know Trev Alberts did his radio thing the other night, and it was all glowing as you would expect about the new head coach when there hasn't been a game played. But I do think you have to just say, even the skeptics, 2 months on the job, that's all we can evaluate. They're just workers. I mean, they are truly grinders, but they're kind of it seems like they're having fun while doing it. And I do think that personality piece is important. And Trev had a line about how, Nebraska football in its best days, people felt like they could see it and feel it, like they were right there, a part of it, And I do think what he was getting at is maybe a little bit of that's been lost. And when you do have your coaches that, can get out in the communities like they have with such force, and, not just like stand in a line in a hall in a high school gym, but also, they're in the little dining establishments in the small towns and stuff like that. They're just getting to know everyday Nebraskans. I think that counts for something. Now, that's not going to have you beat Michigan in a year or two. I understand that. But I do think for where we're at right now and what we can evaluate, you look at the recruiting class, they're top 25 now in the 24/7 Sports Composite. Never would have guessed that a month or two ago. And, their portal action is all guys who, are from Power 5 programs who, at least on paper, you'd say, yeah, I'm willing to give that a look of intrigue, because they got some guys who have had good resumes as recruits. So it's been a good start.
We're talking to Brian Christopherson, senior writer for Husker247.com. You toss him a follow on Twitter at Husker247BC. Brian, you talked about, you made reference to Trev being on the radio last night, and something that really stuck out to me, and we talked about it earlier on in the show, was him talking about Rhule's understanding of history, but still striving for innovation, and how that kind of connects back to some of the best coaches that Nebraska has seen. T.O. did it with Devaney. You could say Solich did it with T.O., and now it's Matt Rhule doing it with both T.O. and Solich. How does that kind of resonate with you and maybe just the average Husker fan and what they can expect early on from this coaching staff?
Yeah, that's a really good question, Andrew. I think it's crucial that you do say you're new here and you say, I understand what the history is, and I love that about this place. I love this is a place that respects certain traditions and certain memories, and you hold on to those. It's not like you just have to forget about them. At the same point, the landscape of college football, we all know, has changed so dramatically. You've got to find what are the advantages of today. Like maybe 3 or 4 decades ago, it was getting ahead in strength and conditioning, which Nebraska did. And that's one of the things when you talk about Tom Osborne of yesteryear being an innovator as a coach. It was there. I mean, that was a big spot, but he did other things that were innovative, like even things that are small, like Tom would play in the kickoff classic, and they would get, a lot of extra money to play in that game before other people were doing it. Nebraska played in it a few times, and they put that toward like strength and conditioning and things like that. And so he was always thinking about what's a way we can help ourselves both, financially and other things. And, now we're probably talking more about NIL and stuff like that. But not only that, it's like, I've heard Matt Rhule discuss like recovery of the athlete, like the body recovery, and
how about
just
that?
Like getting them in the best. Yeah, I just think stuff like that is you're kind of taking it a different angle, like that's not always talked about as much in public, and you're saying these are little key areas we know is important to the everyday athlete. Like, you're going to get beat up playing this game, but we're going to take care of you. We're going to take care of you mentally and physically, and these are the ways we're going to do it with this new facility and all this. And, of course, the NIL component matters. So I think that there definitely has been respect for what's been. It's been said that Matt Rhule's talked to, Coach Tom and Frank Solich each a couple times at least. So he's had those conversations. But I think those guys would also be the first to say, yeah, you got to sort of do it your way too, and see what's the next thing where you can get an edge, because that's the only way Nebraska football's. I mean, that's why it's been great. There's obviously been a lot of athletes who have toiled and given a lot to the program, but it was also just great thinking at the top that said, this is how we are a step in front of our neighbors, and Nebraska's got to find that again.
BC, what do you think it is? Because you mentioned Coach Solich, and of course that gets me going, because that he is,
yeah,
and that's my favorite. But it's the first time I've heard administration reference, hey, this is probably a guy you need to talk to, right? He just kind of gets overlooked unless we're arguing about what should or shouldn't have happened in 2004, right? So what do you think it is about Trev where he has made such a concerted effort to connect with Coach Solich to make sure that he feels as though he has the opportunity to be as much of a part of Nebraska as he deems fit?
Well, it probably helps. I would have to say that Trev's not an outsider in this case. I do think that's probably useful that, like, he was there in that program, and obviously Coach Solich knows who he is as a player in person and all that stuff. And so, that gets you in the front door as far as the conversation where there's more of a background understanding of each person when they're talking. So that probably helps. I would guess also that, Frank was busy coaching for a long time, and I understand that. Like, he's trying to win up until a couple of years ago every week himself, and that's his focus, and he put everything into that. And so your mind is kind of there, and you kind of just have to keep on that path. And now maybe there's a little time to look back at some things throughout his career, and I hope there's people that are talking to him that are saying, you know, you're beloved here. And I would hope he understands that, because I really think he is. And yes, there was a lot of debate for a while about what should have happened or shouldn't have happened when he was the head coach. But I mean, that's 20 years gone now, basically. I mean, we're to the point where, I mean, and we're not just talking about a guy who was the head coach. We're talking about a guy who played here and was a freshman coach and was an assistant on the national title teams. That's a guy who should be about as beloved as any Husker has been that's been associated with that program, when you actually think about all the years that were spent in it. And I think most fans understand that, and hopefully Frank does. It seems like the door's been opening wider and wider, and you know, I'm like everybody else who it would be an emotional day for him to come back some Saturday and be recognized, and to see how that place would explode, because I think it would.
You know what makes my heart kind of skip a little bit is, I was talking to Rashawn Jackson yesterday. And a couple days before that, I was talking to another former guy, and we were just talking about, you know, eras we would like to play in, and you know, catching up with Amon. We're going to sit down with him and peel back some layers of the onion. And you know, one of the things that really gets me going, that I think was missing, but I hope it's in Coach Rhule just because of his personality with regards to Coach Solich, is he was so tough, right? Mentally tough, physically tough. He trained with us. He taught us to be okay with cheering for somebody else if they beat you out or they were better than you, how to practice. And when I think about that, it makes me emotional, because I wonder like where I would be if he didn't get me to come out of the backside of physical and mental toughness. I think that's his most underappreciated tool when we talk about all the what should and shouldn't have happened. He taught resolve, man. Like, that's the thing I love him the most for. Not to go all Coach Solich out.
And that's, no. Well, I think that's the part too where, you know, there are factions of the fan base who, when they hear the head coaches talking to Tom or Frank or anybody, they're like, okay, come on. You know, you do hear those people that are like, let's move on past that. And I'm not one of those. And what you're talking about is where, you know, that coaching fraternity is a special bond. I mean, I remember like when Matt Rhule did his interview with Will Compton and those guys, he talked about how Brad Childress, who he didn't even know, former coach of the Vikings, messaged him out of the blue after he got fired at Carolina and says, Matt, you're going to be a better coach for this. And there's that support. It's that support of, I've been in that chair. I know the strain that goes with it. I know the highs and the lows, and I can connect you on this, that just people on the outside, they might think they can, but they just don't know it until they've been in it. And so to me, when I hear that the Husker head coach is talking to a past guy who's been in that seat, I would say, of course they should. I mean, there's only like a few people who know what it's like to be there, to sit in that spot, to know what that's like every day with, you know, you're the most recognizable name in the state, more than the governor. It's just that way here. And to live that and do it well, of course I would pick their brains. And you're picking the brains of guys who also, I don't think would ever say live just like I did it. You know, like you gotta, this is the template exactly like this. They know it's changed. And that's because those guys were innovators themselves, and they know that there's always something that's moving it a little bit forward, and you got to find that. But there are some basic tenets you can get from those guys in conversations that I would guess are very useful.
Brian, at every stop so far for Matt Rhule, it's always been a slow burn. It starts poor, and then it gradually gets better. But on Bussin' with the Boys yesterday, Rhule said, I don't want this to be a slow burn. I feel like that year was last year. Do you feel that puts Rhule at an advantage in year one at Nebraska?
Yeah, I think compared to his other stops, definitely so. And I think they're very, this is just listening to their quotes. I don't think I'm taking a leap here. They're pleasantly surprised at what's here already. I mean, that's the biggest part. I think, yes, they've added some transfer pieces that you're optimistic you can plug in and can give you another step. But I mean, like, listen to Evan Cooper when he was up in front of the media talking about the DBs, and then you start to go through the secondary.
Well, he's got the best room though.
Yeah, he did. Well, I know, but I mean, you got dudes. But even wide receiver, Damon, you could go to wide receiver now, and I'll put a question mark on it until it's not, because that's the way it should be. But there's guys there you're like, that's interesting. Like that could be something, you know. Like you think about Xavier and Isaiah. We've talked about those guys, but you know, just the Billy Kemp, you know, popping in with a pretty good resume from Virginia, and Marcus Washington, I think probably has a lot to prove. I mean, I just think, and you could go to running back. You could say, well, like,
gosh, that
when AJ.
Facts.
Go ahead.
Good room, BC. Not to interrupt you, I apologize, but you're right. That running back room, and plus I love Barthel. Like, that's a deep room. That could be a sneaky good room, man.
Yeah. So, I mean, I use the best room probably off the bat, but you can go through and you're like, okay, that's pretty interesting, and that there's something that's been there that you know. QB. I mean, it across the board. There's spots where it makes you sit up in your chair a little bit and say, it feels like they've got talent that's close. They're on the surface a little bit. They just got to pop through, and I think they see some of that. Now they're not. I don't think they're expecting the moon in the first year or anything, and there's got to be patience with it. But honestly, it's not as hard to win 6 games in college football as it's been made around here. We also need to come to that conclusion. Like, sometimes someone will say, I think they could win. Yeah, you'll hear someone say, I think they could win 6 or 7 next year. And then they get, like, shushed. Like, go to the corner. Like, how dare you say, have you seen them? They haven't. It's like, a lot of people can win 6 or 7 games. They can certainly do it at a place with the resources Nebraska has, if a few things were put together and you had the right people putting them together. So, yeah, I think it's very realistic for that to happen. And if someone thinks that's an out there opinion, I'd be like, look around college football. There's like 80 teams that make a bowl game. For some reason, Nebraska hasn't in 6 years. That drought needs to end, and it needs to end this year.
BC, I don't want to you're good at not playing the hype game, so I'm asking you, how much or how portable, because Coach Rhule referenced it. You know, you talk about, you watch Nebraska beat Iowa in a game in which they didn't, you know, they've been awful against Iowa up until that point. Didn't have anything to play for other than pride. And I say that tongue in cheek because, you know, that's a big deal to me. Iowa had everything to play for. Then Iowa goes and they roll in the bowl games. So they're still motivated. How much of what Nebraska showed at the end of last year helps this staff or gets this staff to believe, or even us, the fan base, to think, you know what, with more coaching and a few better players, the resolve seems to be there. Do you think that, or is that a different time period? We're now in 2023.
I think you got to hit reset a little with each squad, but I mean, there's a good number of guys still back that were out on the field, and they got that taste. I think it's a big deal.
They could return 8 defensive starters.
Yeah, that's the part. Like, it's a pretty experienced defense that's actually coming back for Nebraska. Now, there's a spot or two where you worry a decent amount about it.
Yeah.
And so that's the part where you wonder, okay, can they find that and really be like a top 40 type defense, or are they going to be more, you know, middling than that even? This might be a small thing. I don't think it is. You know, around here I think people used to make fun sort of the trophy games the Big Ten has and all that stuff. And then you would see Iowa run across Nebraska's field and have a party in your end zone, holding up this whatever. It could be anything. It could be a milk carton they're playing for, but they're holding in the air and they have it and you don't on your field, and it ticks you off. I mean, I would have to think of it for Nebraska to go get one of those. I think was a big deal to be on the field when that happened, and for guys to go experience that, and like they went down the front row with that thing and showed it to the crowd, and it was just like, okay, I see it. This is big. Let's not give this back. I think there are going to be guys who got a taste of that in that particular setting, and it's gonna be something to them now. It's gonna help. Like, I don't want to give that back. I don't want to see them do that on my turf. So I think stuff like that, it's maybe just a very small sliver of the pie. Maybe it's just even a crumb, but there's all sorts of little crumbs like that are important, I think, from some late season success that when you can transfer it over, and maybe that's one of them.
We're talking to Brian Christopherson, senior writer for Husker247.com. Brian, as you talk about going out and getting something that you want, that is something Nebraska did last week when getting Eric Gilbert and adding to that tight end room. But and you can say Eric Gilbert's the guy, and that's cool too. But based on what they have in the room already and how they keep growing that tight end room, do you see Eric Gilbert being the guy, or do you like somebody else that's already been there, done that with the program? Or how do you kind of, in your mind, how do you kind of see the tight end situation working out?
8 scholarship guys, and we blinked. Remember when we were like,
right?
Yeah.
Then to get Ishmael
I think
Smith.
everybody there should right now be thinking that can be me. I think that's the first part. I mean, there's a new sheriff in town in that room, a guy who's been a head coach in Bob Wager, and he'll probably have certain expectations that maybe are even a little different than they've had, and that can be a good thing too. I'm not in any way going to write off like Thomas Fedone or somebody like that if he can get fully healthy, because I do know before he got injured both times, it's practice, I get it, it's the season of fluff and all that, but there was excitement about how he was starting to come along. And so I haven't forgotten that. So if he can get fully healthy and is invested in the way he seems to have been, even when he was injured, I think he could be a real threat in this conversation. I think Borkert's
Me too.
a good player. Like,
Me too.
Yeah, I think sometimes, a guy will have a drop or two in his first year, and there's a few plays you remember, and so it's kind of like this. There's this little cloud around him, like, okay, I don't know, but you got to remember he was basically a freshman or whatever last year, so he was playing a lot of snaps, probably earlier than most guys would. So he's a guy that you would expect in another year or two is going to be really solid. So I think he can be, but back to your question, I think Gilbert, there's a reason he was the number 5 overall recruit in that class. Like, his skill set and frame is ridiculous. I mean, he's like a defensive end who can run routes, and be a problem matchup. So if he has the stuff together off the field and can really find it with the staff, what they want, and just focus in on football, then his talents will be fine, and he'll be the top guy, I think, if that's the case. So it'll be fun though.
Could it all of a sudden be a deep room, BC?
I would say, yeah, but that's the fascination with this team. You could look at every position group and say they're basically put a question mark by them now, but could it be deep? Could it be pretty solid? Yeah, you can almost do that across the board. So that's what makes it pretty fun going into the spring.
Brian, appreciate your time. Thanks so much. Enjoy the rest of your day. We'll talk again next week.
Thanks, B.
All right. Thanks for having me, guys.
Kevin Sjuts up next.
Rogers and Benning will be back in 4 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 3 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 2 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 1 minute. Rogers and Benning will be back in 30 seconds. Coffee and Cream with Rogers and Benning on Hail Varsity Radio.
Hey, welcome back. Coffee and Cream in the morning on Hail Varsity Radio, powered by Currency. Damon Benning, Andrew Rogers, live from the H&H Chevrolet stage at Hail Varsity Club. Happy to have you with us wherever you are catching us currently, whether that's 590 AM ESPN Omaha, 1480 AM ESPN Lincoln. We're live on Twitter. We're live on YouTube.
Twitter.
And we're talking to Kevin Sjuts. You like that rhyme? YouTube, Sjuts. Kevin Sjuts up right now.
I just know I'm going to feel better after I talk to him.
Kevin liked the comparison there, like a little rhyme for his name. Kevin, good morning.
Good morning. How are you, gentlemen?
I'm good. I have to know right away because listen, we were like kindred spirits. You tweeted out the picture of the ceiling fan and the light, and I've been the YouTube guy. It took me 3 hours to fix a garage, as our producer can attest to, and I finally watched the YouTube video because that's what everybody told me to do. But I am so interested in the ceiling fan phenomenon because we need one, and I'm afraid to like get into it. But Twitter was beautiful, man. They like were helping you out. You're like, man, this is what Twitter should be like.
There is good that can come from Twitter. It's not this just horrible place where people smear each other.
Except for the Mark Gray stuff.
It's like you walk into this room where sometimes we're awkward at the hardware store. We don't want to talk to people. At Twitter, you throw out a question, and there are 50 people willing to offer their opinion and help you. It's amazing.
Did you get the light switch figured out?
No.
God, I'm like, I hope it works. I hope it works.
Here's the deal, DB. So I have the right tools.
Okay.
I took it apart. I watched probably a dozen YouTube videos. And for those that don't know, the ceiling fan works. The light does not. They're on separate switches. And my wife went to turn the light on one day. It flickered and it's gone. Hasn't turned on since. So when we walk in the room at night, it's dark. There's no way to walk into a lit room outside of our cell phone light.
Gotcha.
Right?
Yeah. Okay.
I take the thing apart after watching all these YouTube videos. I'm pretty confident in what I think it is.
Which is phenomenal, by the way, up to this point. It's a lot of wires.
I take it apart. I have the wire cutters in my hand. And I just have this moment of panic and fear that I'm going to cut the wrong one. So I stop. I was right there ready to go. And I
Cut the red wire. I think it's blue. Cut the blue. Cut the red. No, I think
Jack Bauer does it.
And so right now it is put back together, but where it was a week ago.
Hey,
like it doesn't work.
Hey, Kevin, if you want to put together my couch legs, feel free, because there are no holes on the bottom, and I am struggling at home right now.
Bob Vila Men's Hour, brought to you by Kevin Suits.
Right.
And the funny thing is, like, I am one of the least handy people in
Same.
On the like,
Everybody raises their hand.
Repairing a little hole in the wall is a struggle for me. And more times than not, when I try something at home, it becomes I just worsen the problem.
It gets worse.
So that's the fear of this. It's electricity, and yes, just for everybody wondering, I killed the power in the room. There was no live wires. I wasn't about to die, but I was there. You guys can probably picture it. I'm standing on top of my bed with like a hoodie and jeans on, and I got the wire cutters. Wires are everywhere. I'm ready to go. Here's the moment, and then I punted.
Tongue out to the side of your mouth.
I'm telling you.
One eye squinted.
Oh, Kevin, I got to ask you, because you're always kind of, you're never too high, you're never too low. You don't get down into the weeds. Like, what is it about what this staff has done? Even though I know we're skeptical, Kevin, we've been burned. We've seen good guys. We're all excited. How has Coach Rhule and this staff got back in that protected place known as our hearts again?
Well, I was just going to say that they've hit our hearts. They've done things that people in Nebraska hold really high, and that is Nebraskans and places. There's a lot of towns, venues, restaurants. It seems like they're everywhere. So they've quickly, within a span of a month and a half, 2 months, they've become what would appear one of us. It's not a group of guys that have hardly any ties to Nebraska, if at all. That's gone now. They're hanging out in Sterling. They're making the rounds in Omaha regularly, going over to Lincoln High within the first week.
Yeah,
I mean,
right off the
some
bat.
good stuff.
Yeah,
and even Ed Foley tweeting a picture of a cheese-covered sandwich in Grand Island. How many people saw that and were like, I've had that same sandwich at the same place.
Kevin, he was tweeting tasty cakes.
Whatever. He can. Oh, and let's not leave this out. Going into the home of the Fultzes and the picture of Ed and Gerald together, that brought a tear to my eye. Yeah. They probably had to get on Wikipedia and watch some videos of, who is this young man that passed, and what did he mean?
Mm.
You're telling me that was one of their priorities within the first 2 months on the job? It was. And so they've just attacked the hearts of the fan base, and it is good. And so football-wise, notwithstanding, they've done everything to try to win over these fans. Not that they even had to win them over.
So okay, let me take it one step further. So even like, let's say I'm skeptical, right? Oh, they're just going to say all the right things, and they hit the eye back phrase, they hit the tight end phrase. Okay, they've done the history, the Coach Solitz, the Coach Osborne, all of that, right? Which, by the way, the Coach Solitz thing was fantastic because no coaches ever really go out of their way to do that. But how about, do you agree that people much rather, it's easy to say the right thing, but they're actually putting time, like the effort, like they're moving, they're traveling. They don't appear, it's almost like they have more hours in the day than we do, right? Is that part of it too? Because they look like they're working hard. That's a Nebraska thing.
Yeah, that's a great point, DB. There is meat behind what their words are, and I think that this is coming on the heels of an era in which sometimes words rang kind of hollow. And so, and you mentioned the hours in the day thing. What time does Ed Foley's buzz alarm go off?
I have no
does
idea.
The dude sleep?
Yeah, did you see the Battle Creek photo today?
It was before I woke up.
Right.
Like, how is this happening? And, we can all respect people that work really hard. Now, granted, some of his quote unquote hard work right now is just going places, shaking hands, and buying a cup of coffee. But that's a part of his job is to build relationships. And this staff puts such high value on relationships. And I think that's an important aspect of this. You remember when Coach Rhule was introduced, he said that he wanted to get out in the community. That wasn't just him. That's his entire staff. They're kind of walking in line with that being one of Matt's missions, and they're doing it as well. And man, those are just all these little things just add up in the right direction. Who knows what the football is going to look like? We are so far from even a spring practice, but everything right now, for those people that had guarded hearts with the new staff, and I'll raise my hand, I'm one of them.
How smart?
They're making it really hard to pump the brakes on really just falling in love with the staff.
How smart do you look 3 weeks later when you said, let me reserve judgment after the hack tournament on the best team in Lincoln? Man, what a round robin. 3.5 weeks later, Kevin, no pressure. Do you feel like you have a better handle? Because all of a sudden, here comes Pius. Here comes Lincoln East. Southwest maybe has the most pieces. Southeast, we know about their talent. We get Coach Baugh on Friday, so I'm excited to pick his brain. But do you feel any closer to who you think's the most well-rounded team in Lincoln yet?
I am more confused than I was 2 or 3 weeks ago. I would have gone, I would have probably said Lincoln East, but then last night happened.
Yep.
They got beat by 19 at home against Lincoln Southeast, they were on the road. But East, when they shoot it, well, they're as good as anybody in the city. And get this. So of these 6 LPS schools, 5 of them have 9 wins. The other one, Lincoln High, has 10. Pius has 12.
Yeah.
So everybody's in the conversation. And I even did that little chain reaction thing at one point one day at my desk at work. And I was like, all right, so Lincoln High won the hack, but Lincoln High lost to, Lincoln Southwest, who lost to Lincoln. You can connect them all. It's a vicious circle. They're all kind of the same. And you really don't know who the quote unquote best team is. They're all good. And I even made this comment off air last night. I would like to go back and count up the number of dunks we've had on the nightly highlights. Literally right now. This is an all-time record without question in my 17 years at 10-11. And I think that we're on pace to absolutely shatter the record because we're getting 5, 6, 7 dunks a night on the newscasts.
So good, Kevin.
Kevin, you're the man. We appreciate it.
All right. Be well, guys.
Thanks.
You too. 2 for you up next. Call in 888-638-4876.
Rogers and Benning will be back 4 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 3 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 2 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 1 minute. Rogers and Benning will be back in 30 seconds. Coffee and Cream with Rogers and Benning on Hail Varsity Radio.
Hey, welcome back, 888-638-4876. To get involved in the game, we're playing 2 for You, presented by Dingman's Collision Center, the only place to take your car whenever something is wrong. Maybe it's right. Maybe you just want to go to Dingman's to say hello. Who knows?
Hello.
But if things aren't going too well, you head over to Dingman's because they've been in the business for over 25 years, plus they're local, and we support local. They work on all makes and models from Fords to Teslas. I talk about it all the time. I'm going to tell you again that they have this give back program there, which I am just head over heels for. There's not a lot of businesses that will just put their money toward charity a charity of your choice, of your choosing, based on what they have in front of you, there's not many that just do that.
Mm-hmm.
Like there are every company out there contributes to charity, but not all do it every day. And that's what Dingman's is all about. They have 4 locations through the metro area, along with that standalone mechanical shop at 120th and Maple. If you have a problem with your car, head over to Dingman's. They'll take care of you. Go to dingmans.com to learn more. Now, before we get to the game, I'm told we have to go to line 1 and talk to Random Mike, because DB is uber excited to talk to Mike. Random Mike, I should say.
He earned the nickname. Random Mike, good morning, man. How are you?
Damon, you know I love you.
Oh, so, I'm excited. That probably means more to me than it does to you, man. It's good to hear from you.
Look, Scott, I'm hearing the feedback when I'm talking here.
Shane, can you help us with the feedback?
No, but just continue to
All right,
talk.
let me turn this down here. We're working through it, Mike. We're working through it.
Hey, Ben, can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you just fine.
Scott Rowland, and I know you were a multi-sport guy.
Yeah.
If you haven't seen this, people that are listening, Google Scott Rowland defensive highlights. There's a couple videos, 3 minutes and 5 minutes. It's breathtaking. And this guy was like 6'4", 250.
Big guy. Multi-sport. Mike, what made you go down that rabbit hole?
Oh, well, I'm a split-step tennis guy. And this guy, maybe the greatest third baseman defensively ever. And he did the tennis split step. That allowed him to get that explosive jump to make plays. But the other reason I'm calling you is to ask you about another multi-sport guy, Cam Kozel.
Oh, he's fantastic, Mike.
How would he have done if he decided to play quarterback in college?
You know, he could. There's always. You know why there's always going to be some. That's great. Because I think he's fantastic. You know why I like him? He's competitive. So wherever you put Cam, he's going to find a way to win. He is something else. Just watch him. I know he rakes. He's a great baseball player, but he was, without question, the difference in that football team. He just made plays. You could put him wherever, Mike, and he'll find a way to function.
How about that one play? And it reminded me of the play Cole Payton made in the championship game in high school, where he breaks like 3 tackles and then makes a great throw down the field.
Yeah, broke our heart. Nobody else is making that play. He's so strong, and he's got those big legs, and he's got a good arm too. So it's like you think you got it covered, and that was almost good enough to win. Let me ask you something real quick here, Mike. What's Nebraska going to do without Widener right now?
That broke my heart.
Oh,
and she did it on a hustle play.
Same.
Yeah.
And in that Maryland game, we killed them the first time, and they could not stop her. She could penetrate at will. She made a bunch. She almost had a triple double.
Yeah, it's interesting. Because what they scored 14 points.
Right.
It's 6 in the first quarter and 8 in the second, and you're thinking, they're going to have a hard time putting a biscuit in the basket. Are you still excited for the season without her? Because they've been ravaged by injuries.
Both teams.
Yeah, no doubt. How about the men's team ravaged by injuries?
Yeah. What? So I think Northwestern is pretty good. I've been selling Andrew on this on the last couple of weeks. You think Nebraska could steal one tonight? I have no idea who's going to guard Audige, but you think they could steal one tonight, Mike?
Oh, definitely. And look, the 3-point shot. From what you hear, there are guys that make 3-pointers all the time in practice, but they can't even make free throws in the game.
Yeah.
We had 2 guys in the last game that were 1 for 9 at free throws.
Yeah. Oh. Mike, you're the best, man. You call us anytime, okay, buddy?
Take care, bud.
Good to hear from you. He's awesome.
Thank God he sided with Scott Rowland. Hey, let's play the game. Don't need to go down that rabbit hole again. Shaner, you got some music for us?
Mad,
Thanks.
though.
What's that?
Split step in tennis.
Yeah.
I should have asked him about the Aussie Open. Mike could host the show. Yeah. You need a co-host? He's your guy.
All right. Trent, you're on line 1. Trent, it seems like we have you every Wednesday. What's up, Trent?
Hey, good morning. How are you?
Trent, have you had the wings with the breading yet?
The wings with the breading? Not
Here-
yet.
all right. If we can win you some money, come in here and order the wings, whatever flavor of your choice. Get the breading and then call us back. I want to talk.
Good deal.
All right, buddy.
Hey, who do you want? 2 people on the show. You pick them.
All right, give me a rundown again.
It's Andrew, DB, and Shane.
Oh, give me DB and Shane.
Oh, dang it.
Let's make it happen.
Is this the thing that I have to write stuff down?
Yes, turd burglar.
Shane, I told you this during the break. Yes, that's what it
I
is.
wasn't paying any attention.
Get it together, Shane. Let's win Trent some
DB,
money.
choose 1, 2, 3, or 4.
Give me my high school number 3.
Question number 1. A coffee shop. I shouldn't say question.
A coffee
A
shop?
coffee shop.
Okay.
A gaming console. Again, not a video game, a gaming console.
Okay. Not to be confused with console.
A fruit.
Ooh.
You call them fruitcake. Can't say Shane.
Wow. That's tough. That's so wrong. So wrong. All right, go.
Was I supposed to be writing these down?
And a hotel in Vegas.
Okay.
I'm not gonna get that.
Oh. Great. Good confidence over there.
All right.
You guys ready?
I can't even spell it.
Oh, what are you writing down?
Oh, I see why you can't spell it.
What is he writing?
This.
All right, let's do this.
Oh, okay. Okay.
There's no
good,
way.
Good idea to write that down. Way to change. All right. On 1. You guys say it. Ready? A coffee shop. 3, 2, 1.
Scooters.
Starbucks.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I agree.
Hey, and my best bud, I should have said Scooters because that's his.
That's our old place. Our
And
old
that's
life.
and that's my guy too. Shame on me. I own that.
A gaming console. 3, 2, 1.
PlayStation.
Darcy?
Shane. Darcy.
Thank you. A fruit.
Oh boy.
3, 2, 1.
Apple.
Orange.
Apples to
are your,
oranges.
apples are your dig.
DB, where are you? Orange?
I mean,
I did just have the orange drink yesterday, but apples.
I was thinking
apples are-
Celsius.
apples
we
are
got.
bad.
Hey, remember
and we got
recency.
and we got into orange flavor.
Yep. Remember recency, though. I said Butler. You said Georgetown. Go Hoyas, I guess. Did they win?
Hey, Hoyas win. All right, now we got to win him some money.
Yay. Trent, it all comes down to this $10 gift card to Hale Varsity Club on the line. And it's going to be a tough question. A hotel in Vegas. 3, 2, 1.
Bellagio.
Caesars.
Trent, I'm sorry, man.
Gosh.
Oh my goodness. It had to be Bellagio there.
It had to be Bellagio.
So you're a Bellagio guy, Trent?
No, I for sure knew it whenever he said he couldn't spell it.
So I didn't think he would know how to spell Caesars either.
Oh.
You know, it is Shane. I'm telling you. Like,
How do you spell New York, New York?
And Caesar's your guy. I probably should have had that.
I just think boxing.
I was thinking Planet.
I would have said Mandalay Bay.
Mandalay Bay. I want to say MGM Grand, but once he said he couldn't spell it, I'm like, who can't spell MGM except for Shane?
No, I can't spell Grant.
Man, all right, thanks.
Hey, Trent, thanks for the call, man.
Are we ever gonna
Yeah, I
win?
appreciate it. You guys have a good one.
Thanks.
You too, man.
Are we ever gonna win Trent any money?
Maybe someday.
I want somebody to win $40 so they can get a couple of things that I want them to get.
Well, give us a call, 888-638-4876.
Did you see the potato and pancetta pizza?
No, did it look fire?
Dude.
Well, I guess you wouldn't bring it up if it didn't look good.
Yeah, I took a double take.
You're
It's just creative. Like, it's just
What's that there?
It's just creative. It is. Shane Bellagio.
Yeah, I don't know. How
Hey,
to
let's
spell
play
that.
another round.
How do you spell that?
Hey, how much time do we have left, Shane? We're almost done, aren't we?
Yeah, about a minute.
Oh, okay. Well, they can't play another round.
No, you get 90 seconds. Go.
Go?
Yeah, do at least two or three.
All right.
Shane just likes laughing at himself.
I'm assuming this is DB and I because you don't want to
Yep.
play.
Yep.
Hey, DB, let's do an NFL playoff team.
Okay.
Currently.
Okay.
Let's do a current NFL playoff
Can you just
team.
do it? Can you just name it right afterwards? 3, 2, 1.
No. A player on the Bengals not named Joe Burrow.
Okay.
Something you'd see at a football game.
Okay.
And a word that rhymes with super.
Like Mark Duper.
Okay.
Okay, ready? A current NFL playoff team. 3, 2, 1. Chiefs. Should have picked us, Trent. A player not named Joe Burrow on the Bengals. 3, 2, 1. Jamar.
Chase.
Same person. Same person. It's the same person.
It's Jamar Chase, Shane.
Something you'd see at a football game. 3, 2, 1.
Officials.
Players.
I thought about it.
Darn it.
That's the same person.
And something that rhymes with super. 3, 2, 1. Stupor.
We'd have won him $10 though, right?
We would have won him $10. That's a win. That's a W for DB and I, but not for you out there. But hey, it was a win because you got some coffee and cream this morning, like you do every morning throughout the week. We'll do it all again tomorrow.